Hi, everybody, and welcome to another exciting adventure in podcasting. Delighted to be joined on this episode by author Judd Winick. Judd, thank you for jumping in, and thank you for bringing the Marshmallow Man with you as well. Much appreciation for that.
Jason, is absolutely my pleasure. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't have my Marshmallow Man with me. So,
It's a comfort object. It's a comfort object. I love it.
absolutely, absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
it's funny. I mean, we're here in my studio, and quite often, if anyone gets on down here, they'll say like, "Wow, your kids have a lot of toys," and I go, "Yeah, the kids,
Uh-huh.
yeah."
Uh-huh. Yeah. Hey, no judgment here. I don't have kids. I have schnauzers, and somewhere there's a Rocketeer action figure around here. I won't go looking for it, but it is around here somewhere. So
I'm
it's the
sure I've got a
joy.
Rocketeer action figure around here somewhere as well.
So I'll mention a couple of titles that folks are probably familiar with, as well as a couple of
Sure.
characters. You, of course, have worked for DC Comics that has been long-standing, Green Arrow being one of those, and of course, this character called the Red Hood that people
Hmm.
might be familiar with if they've seen Titans and read the books and read anything Batman in the past 15 to 20 years. A big
Hmm.
storyline that's shaped the current continuity or continuities. I'm not sure how that works. And then I'm peeking over your shoulder right below the Marshmallow Man because there's also the graphic novel series Hilo, which I
Yes.
appreciate a great deal as well and have recommended to people.
Oh, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, absolutely. As you know from listening to some of the episodes, I tend to start in those origins. I think it's my fascination with literacy history and things like that. So just curious about what connected you to writing, creating, and sort of these science fiction and comics based worlds.
Well, I think um, the honest answer is that I had two camps that really uh, that I was really working in. I wanted to do a comic strip as a kid. That's always wanted to do. I wanted to do a syndicated comic strip that was in newspapers, and
Hmm.
that was and cartooning and making up stuff like that was my huge passion. And on the flip side, just for entertainment, I read a buttload of superhero comics for as
Nice.
long as I could possibly remember. Um, and I didn't think those two worlds would ever meet. But it just kind of happened to work out that way. Because like I said, I wanted to do a comic strip, and that was my focus from the time I was little all the way through college.
Hmm.
I did a daily comic strip at the University of Michigan, the Michigan Daily. It was called Nuts and Bolts. Did that 5 days a week, which was incredible training. Um, then I got a development deal right out of school. I hadn't even graduated yet. Development deal with Universal Press Syndicate to do my comic strip.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, that development lasted less than a year because they actually didn't think my comic strip was up to the current competitive and professional standards that one needed to do a syndicated comic strip. And that
Hmm.
just about killed me.
Yeah, yeah.
But it gave way to me having to move back in with my parents, which is the dream of every 23-year-old.
Right,
And
right.
but while living at home, I was watching MTV's The Real World,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
which for some of our younger folks out there is one of the original reality TV programs on MTV. They take seven people from around the country, put them up in a house, and they can come and go as they please. It's like a documentary. It's still running. And so mine was almost 30 years ago. It was 1994,
Hmm.
and I was selected. I auditioned, tryouts, a whole other longer story. I say all that to say this. So I went on this reality program called MTV's The Real World. I met the young woman by the name of Pam Ling, who would later become my wife,
Hmm.
and also my roommate on the show was a young man named Pedro Zamora, who was a 22-year-old AIDS educator and activist um, who was living with AIDS. And to tell it as quickly as possible and giving it the short shrift, Pedro was the first time that anyone had really truly seen someone living with AIDS. This is 94, and very little was known really
Hmm.
truly about AIDS and HIV in a real honest way in the public. And Pedro was the first one to show them what it was like. And uh, he was a terrific young man. He was funny. He was warm. He was gentle. He was a terrific educator. He was a hero. He was a lion. Um, and unfortunately, he passed away just a couple of months after we finished filming the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
I say all that to say this because Pam and I began lecturing about Pedro in the years after he passed away. In the meantime, I was still trying to get a comic strip going. I eventually did get syndicated at a syndicated
Mm-hmm.
comic strip.
Mm-hmm.
And in this time, when I was giving lectures about Pedro, it got a little harder to keep giving the lectures about Pedro. It just became emotionally taxing and going around the country, speaking at high schools and colleges. It was getting to be a lot. So I was trying to figure out a way to tell his story um, without having to go out in front of people. And that's when I hit upon like, what if I tried to do a graphic novel, which I had never done before.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
never really thought about telling a story in that way. I'd always done comic strips and one panel, comics and things like that, just stuff with a lot of humor and a lot of jokes, but nothing like this. So I went, took me about 2.5 years. I did this book, which wound up being called Pedro and Me,
Mm-hmm.
which eventually got published. And with that, is when I decided, you know what, I don't think I want to do a comic strip anymore. I
Yeah.
think this is how I tell stories. Um, and that is the beginning of the beginning. It's a long story, but that is
It's
what
a
took
good
me
one.
from wanting to do a comic strip as a little boy to doing a comic strip as a grown person to not wanting to do a comic strip anymore and finding out that to the storytelling that I wanted to do was a longer form storytelling, was a more kind of a richer storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that all started with Pedro. I owe
Yeah.
that to him as well. And, among the many things I owe him. Um, the first story I ever told in this case was an incredibly personal one. And then that
Yeah.
gave way to everything else.
Yeah, I appreciate so much about that. Both the story of getting the initial rejection or someone initially saying, "Hey, this is not the thing," and then sort of exploring, finding yourself, finding your path, and then finding the story that you want to tell and the way that you want to tell it, which the path unwinds, I guess. And
It
yeah.
does. It is a lesson that I try to pass along to young people when I talk to them is that, especially when you're young, um, when things present themselves, when opportunities, when journeys, when adventures, when things happen,
Hmm.
a lot of times you gotta jump and then the net will be there. Yeah, because when you're young, that is the time to take risks, take big swings, make these big attempts, because when you're older, you are not going to be able to do these things.
Right,
You're
right.
just not, you're not, so in my case, again, someone in their 20s, like, yeah, I think I want to try like to make a big giant comic book, and I've never done that before. And I don't know if I'll be any good at it. And I'm trying to take this very, it's like you can, that's when you can do it. That's when you can do it. And, sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah,
But that's
yeah,
okay. At least you know, you don't know if you don't try. You don't succeed unless you try. And
absolutely.
sometimes, it takes you down an entirely different path than you thought.
Yeah, yeah. So speaking of different paths, if you
Yeah.
take some of like the DC work, and you put it next to Hilo, there are commonalities. There are things as far as form, but also very different. So what's that been like to sort of go from one way of telling stories, or actually telling stories in the same way, but very different stories and stories that are geared toward more of an all ages sort of audience?
Well, I spent 12 years doing superhero comics, give or take. And
Hmm.
that also came about because of Pedro and me. I did this graphic novel, and my first editor was my friend Bob Schreck, read Pedro and me
Hmm.
when
Hmm.
he was still an independent publisher, and he offered to publish it if no one else would. So get a big mainstream publisher if you can. So we did. But when Bob went to DC, you know, he believed in me more than I did. It was one of those times where like, I do you like superhero comics? Like, yes. have you have you ever thought about writing them? It's like, not exactly. And he said, I think you'd be really good at this. And that's when he gave me a shot at writing Green Lantern.
Yes, yes.
And Green Lantern led to Green Arrow and Batman and and Power Girl and Justice League International, like whatever. 12 years of writing superhero comics, which
Hmm.
is amazing and challenging, um, and you don't have much time to dwell too much. You gotta. My buddy Greg Rucka would half joke sometimes that a number of times a lot of first drafts got published, and that's pretty
Right.
rough. You just got to keep moving, but it teaches you a lot about how to write, how to make up stories, how to do it quickly, and how to sometimes if you get precious. I mean, one of my favorite stories about making things and storytelling comes from Pixar. But the
Uh-huh.
folks at Pixar, they say that we don't finish a movie, we just have to release it. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
just, it's like we can keep working on it forever if they would let us.
Hmm.
Um, so that taught me a lot about every kind of form of storytelling and how to move things around and do all that. Hilo came about um, when my son was so this is about 10 years ago, a little longer than that. My son was 7 years old. He wanted to read some of my Batman comics.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I had to tell him, no, you may not read my Batman comics. Um, my Batman comics are kind of for teenagers
It's
and
that, yeah, the
grown-ups.
Jason Todd thing is it's dark.
Yeah,
It's
well, yeah,
dark. Yeah.
yeah. That's got guns and stabbings, and it's violent. It's intense.
Hmm.
Um, so we poked around for a series that would be good for my 7-year-old, and the one I gave him was Jeff Smith's Bone,
Hmm.
and he just
Hmm.
flipped for Bone. He loved it. He loved it so much. I'm good friends with Jeff Smith, so I let Jeff know that my son just flipped for Bone, and Jeff then sent us two gigantic boxes full of Bone merchandise, just
Oh,
tons of stuff. Oh yeah,
so awesome.
T-shirts and action figures and posters and just out of date calendars. And my son became a Bone super fan.
Uh-huh.
He's just had tons of stuff. Just loved it, loved it, loved it. And me, I got a little bit jealous because I thought, I'm a cartoonist. I should be able to make a story that he likes as much as Bone. And that became Hilo.
Yeah.
I started doing Hilo. And oddly, it only occurred to me later in the doing of it. Well, a couple things. One, that I kind of come full circle. That
Hmm. Hmm.
I wanted to do comic strips, and comic strips are this all ages entertainment affair. You know, you know, mainstream newspapers are for everybody, 8 to 80. You know,
Hmm.
you're not doing it for kids. My grandfather used to read the funny pages, and my mom and dad. Everyone likes the comic strips. Um, so for Hilo, I was kind of doing the same thing, and both how it was drawn because it kind of looks like a comic strip,
Yeah.
and both the
Yeah.
humor, which is kind of all ages. But I had this decade of doing superhero comics under my belt, which taught me a
Hmm.
lot about how to do it and also what I really like doing. I like superhero stories. I like when people fly around and shoot lasers out of their hands and
Hmm.
fight giant robots and dinosaurs and there's magic and things explode. I just like this stuff. Um, and again, I got pretty good at it over 10 years. Uh,
Hmm.
but one of the big differences is that when you're doing superhero comics, you get in superhero comics, you get a call one day, you just hand in a script, you go, I got this story coming out in Batman or what have you, and someone says, yeah, you can't use Dick Grayson, you can't use Nightwing. Like, what? Well, he's got this thing going on in his own comic and he broke his leg, so he's not gonna be able to do that. It's like they're doing what, 3 months with him with a broken leg? Like, yeah. It's like that doesn't sound like a very good superhero comic. Like, well, that's their problem. You can't use him because he's got a broken leg. How about Martian Manhunter? Like, well, I don't want okay. Let me figure this out. So in no time at all, you've just got to figure it out and make it work,
Hmm.
which is a really great skill to get. That um, you become less precious about the story. You got to move. You got to
Yeah.
figure it out. You got to
Yeah.
take these pieces and move them around, and you got to move forward. So it taught me how to make stories quickly, but I'm swimming in the luxurious pool of not having to worry about someone telling me that Nightwing can't be in the book. I
Yes.
get to make all the decisions. No one's telling me what I can and can't do. So suddenly, I'm free to tell the stories I want to tell and the way I want to tell them, using all these tools that I've been accumulating, since I was 25. Um,
Nice.
and I am very lucky. It took me a while to land up right here. doing Hilo and telling these stories. But
Mhm.
I think, again, when I was a kid, I loved comic strips and I wanted to do that. And I loved superhero comics. And I never thought I was ever going to do that. Now, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing all that in one big stew. So,
Yeah,
very lucky in that way.
love it, love it. And I love seeing graphic novels on classroom libraries because they were not around when I was growing
No,
up.
no,
So great to see books like Hilo out there for kids to enjoy and to dig into, and for adults to enjoy as well. I'll say that as well.
I think a lot of it has to do with, I mean, it's just a theory. I think with the decline of newspapers, we don't have comic strips as much as we used to, and people don't get newspapers as much as they used to. Kids
Hmm.
used to get a daily dose of like 30 comic strips. Cartoons used to come in their lives in print every single day.
Hmm.
And when that went away, I think kids still like cartoons. Um, and I think somewhere in there, uh, there's a Venn diagram of, you know, graphic novels becoming for kids becoming more mainstream. I mean, for the very first time in my life, professionally, I was ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Usually, I'm a good half mile behind if I'm lucky. In this case, Hilo started coming out just before the marketplace and bookstores were inundated with
Hmm.
graphic novels. So I got to be one of the, I mean, there was Bone, there was everything by Raina Tegelmeier, there was Kazukabushi's Amulet, um, there was Lunch Lady, there was Jenny Holm and Matt Holm,
Hmm.
uh, with everything they were doing, and then just I just kind of got in there at that time. So
Yeah.
so now I'm coming up on 10 books in, but I agree with you. Nothing makes me happier than going into a bookstore and a library, which used to have this tiny little section
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
graphic novels. And it'd be, depending on where you were, like there'd be Spider-Man and Mouse.
Mouse was there, definitely. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, maybe Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud,
Yeah.
and then be crammed in there. And now there's the graphic novel section, which is just for the superheroes. You've got your manga section, of library and bookstore, and now you got your kids' graphic novels, all in, depending on your bookstore, an enormous section
Hmm. Hmm.
of so many. I mean, I walk into my own neighborhood bookstore. It's like I have not even seen these. What the hell are these? I mean, like
Right.
brand new books. I mean, and by the way, my ear is to the ground, and there's so many coming out. And it's wonderful. It's
Hmm.
great. It's
Hmm.
great. I do feel, quite honestly, it's in a in a crass capitalistic way. I think it's actually a market that can be sustained, and I mean this in the best possible way,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
because kids like graphic novels. Uh, Teachers and parents are coming around more and more. Librarians are always they're way ahead, and they're
Hmm.
fine with they've been fine with graphic novels for a long time. But I think it's beautiful, and when a certain age group of kids grow out of them, right behind them there's another age group who's just come into the
That's
world.
right.
You know,
That's right.
when those 7-year-olds become 15-year-olds are not interested, there's another group of 7-year-olds who are right behind them who are going to read those books.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it is one of those things that will keep continuing.
And if they're anything like me, they'll go back and reread later on.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no. That's I mean, you know, we comic book fans are a special breed who'll go back and read the stuff over and over again.
True, true.
Um, and But I find kids do that. I mean, that's the thing. It's a debate, I guess. Um, I find kids read their graphic novels over and over again more than they read their prose books.
Hmm.
And it's not an either or thing. You can figure out why. It's because of the pictures.
Hmm.
They're more they're just more engaging in that way, and also they're shorter to read time wise. What I
Hmm.
mean is, I think graphic novels often get a really bad rap. When a kid reads a prose book, it could take them a couple of days or a week or longer because it's a 200-page book of prose. It takes longer. When they read a graphic novel, some kids will get through it in a couple of hours. And in
Hmm.
that way, a lot of adults think that, like, well, it's not real reading. Like, no, it's just a short story. That's the
Hmm.
point.
Hmm.
It's less words. There's less real estate to go over. It doesn't take away from it.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I've not had a 8 or 9-year-old ever come up to me with a prose book in their hand, pointing to a particular passage that they've highlighted to
Hmm.
say like this really spoke to me. No, but with graphic novels,
Yeah.
they come up all the time and say, I love this panel. I really like this page, or I like
Yes.
this part,
Hmm.
and it's an age thing. It's what kids can. We live in we are visual human beings. We live in a visual world, and I think that's why they gravitate towards it so much.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had students say, I see myself in this book. And it's that
Oh,
moment where like you just have to get out of your own way and be like, oh my gosh, this author, this illustrator, whatever the combination happened to be, like they've done this amazing thing, and I just get to sort of facilitate this little interaction that happened. It's just amazing stuff. The other
that's
thing you
wonderful.
mentioned, oh yeah,
Yes.
it's yeah. You have 10 of these. And so that's another
Yeah.
huge part, which is that when someone really likes the first book, a kid, an adult, in this case, talking about kids, they want the next chapter and the next chapter. And that's another great thing about a visual series like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, the fun of the ongoing series is just that. I mean,
Hmm.
again, for us hardcore comic fans, that's what it's all about.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean, you read your 25-page comic, and then 30 days from now you get to read another one. With a lot of graphic novel series, they're doing the same thing. Like here's one story, and then the next one, and then the next one, and the next one. This has been going on for a long time. For me personally, again, I get to bridge these two things I love so much, like being a cartoonist and doing silly drawings and things with lots of jokes, to telling an ongoing superhero story that evolves and moves forward, just the way it has with superhero comics.
Hmm.
And kids like that. I mean, they
Yeah.
really do. They really like getting invested in the characters. I mean, those are, in all deference to all the folks who read Hilo, my favorite readers are the ones who can be called the geekiest ones, who are like us. The ones
Right.
who they want to get into the minutia, and they have like the big spoiler questions. And at every
Hmm.
school I go to, when I go and talk, we go to a Q&A. I said, okay, a couple of rules about Q&A. Like, and I said, just now, if you have a question, it's a spoiler, meaning that we know what spoilers are, the surprises that comes in the book. I might cut you off, but when I'm done talking, come up here,
Uh-huh.
to the library, or come here to the stage, and we're gonna have a 10-minute spoiler conversation. They said, because y'all are my guys and gals. You're the
Love it.
ones, who you were me when I was a kid. I want to talk about, and they ask the most nitty gritty stuff. And half the time it's like, yeah, wait, what book was that in?
Right,
Oh,
right.
that was in book three. It's like, no, I don't remember, because I just, I don't go back and read them like a ton. I don't remember that was in three or four. It's like, no, okay, carry on, carry on. Yes. Wish monster? Okay. Yeah, that monster has no significance. I don't know if that no. At the moment, that monster's not coming back.
Right, right,
So I'm
right.
sorry, but maybe I will if you like it that much. Stuff like that. It's the best.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I have one more official question, and then we can hit
Sure,
anything that we missed. And I'm going to
sure.
pause here to also give love to Jeff Smith, because you mentioned him earlier, and I know he's having some health problems at the moment. So love to Jeff Smith out there. Not,
Jeff had a
I'm sure
cardiac
he's,
arrest.
yeah, I'm sure he's
He
not listening all the time, but just in case, I'll put that out there.
no, no, no. Let us put it out to the universe. I'm hoping for a speedy and quick. Well, forgetting the speedy. I'm hoping that he recovers well and
Hmm.
in good
Hmm.
health. He's a wonderful person on top of being a
Great
brilliant
human.
artist. And yeah, and I'm not going to get all worked up when we talk about it. I hope not. I hope he's going to be okay, because I don't want to think of a world without him. And
Yeah,
also, just I want him to keep doing what he's doing, as
absolutely.
long as he possibly can. So old and gray, and we're annoying and decrepit. That's what we all deserve.
It's the goal. It's the goal. So sending
Yes.
that out
Yeah.
into the world. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so next creative directions, next chapters in Hilo, sort of those things that are on the horizon, as well as if a listener hasn't connected with you before and kind of checked out what you're all about. I'm going to mention Red Hood again. I'm just going to put that out there
Sure.
for the older readers, but then also the Hilo series as well.
Yeah.
So those spaces where folks can connect on the web, on the interwebs, and other such things.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you, or like starting, let's start with Batman. So
Yes.
yes, I wrote Batman for a number of years, and the series is collected. My entire run's collected in a couple different places. They have like a big one that just came out,
Hmm.
which has the entire Red Hood saga. Uh, and if you want the short version, we did an animated movie that I was lucky enough to write, Batman Under the Red Hood. And most of my DC work is collected, and as well as the Marvel stuff I did as well. As far as Hilo, um, to keep up with me and Hilo, just follow me on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. I'm right on there. And
Hmm.
Hilo, I mean, often people say, where can we find Hilo? It's like, well, it's published by this small independent publisher called Random House.
Yes,
So
yes. I hope
you
they
can
do
find
well.
Hilo where, yeah, they'll be okay. They're a
Yeah.
comer. I got big hopes for them.
Yes,
So
yes.
with that, you can find Hilo wherever books are sold.
Yes.
I always have great joy in saying, like, could I, in your bookstore? Yes, you can find it in your neighborhood bookstore. Would they have it? If they don't, they can order it real easy. Trust me, it's wherever books are sold.
If there's a
And
tree
yeah,
house that starts stocking books, I'm sure Random House is there. They've
there,
scouted it out.
just there's a bookseller right there at the bottom of the tree saying, like, how you folks doing today?
That's right. That's right.
Can I interest you in a few things? Got 10 minutes just to talk a little bit?
That's
Just
right.
looking out to flesh out your catalog a little bit. Um, but this I'm not even mocking at all. It's I have been very lucky, um, at many turns,
Yeah. Yeah.
in my life, including that, I get to do this series. When I get finished talking with you in a little bit, I'm going to be hopping right back over there to my drafting table, and I'm
Nice.
working on Hilo book 11.
Nice.
You
Nice.
know, number 9 came out last February. Number 10 comes out this coming February. Um, and I'm averaging about a book a year.
Hmm.
Um, and it's, you know, and luckily, knock wood, they do well enough that I get to keep making them, which is all I really want to do. So it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have lead time, so it's not like you're writing 22 pages a month every month. Like you were talking about those
Now,
first drafts and things. So you have some time built into that year and
yeah,
publishing schedule.
way more time than I had in the past.
Yeah.
Sort of. I mean, it's funny that, and this is boring business stuff. Um, I do a book a year, a new Hilo every single year, which is my understanding is rather quick
Hmm.
comparatively. When graphic novels started to take off a little bit for, graphic novels for young people, and Random House started to expand and try to bring in and buy more titles, a number of cartoonists I know said, like, yeah, no, I had a book pitch into Random House we were talking about, and they're really into it, and they want
Yeah.
enough to be able to do a book a year. And I told them, like, I can't do a book a year, like maybe every other year, maybe 2 years. And they said, well, Judd Winick does a book a year. This is my buddies calling me, and like, to the woman, to the man, said, they said the same thing. It was like, well, good for Judd. I'm so glad he can do a book a year. And I must have heard this from, like, at least a good 8 or 9 good friends. It's like, oh yeah, they expect us to crack out a book a year. What are you doing? Like, I have no other usable skills. And
You are the trendsetter.
and well, I think it's the combo platter of, one, I learned to draw quickly doing a comic strip, so I could
Hmm.
draw quickly. I draw like a comic strip. They're not that, complex as far as my artwork. I'm not doing. I can name other cartoonists to do things which are a little more. They're kind of like Peanuts and Calvin and Hobbes. They're kind of simple looking, and I get a lot out of a little. And I wrote superhero comics over decades. You know, and again, no one's telling me I can't use Nightwing anymore, so I could just go quickly. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
all my 10,000 hours came into doing it just like this in this way. So that's at the moment how I can do it every year. And that's all I do. I don't have like 4 other jobs, or I don't have to do something else on top of it.
Yeah.
And it's great fun. And to anyone out, any younger folks who are out there who are thinking of doing something like this, it's great. I mean, I live like a 10-year-old. I make things up and draw them. Look around you here. It's full of toys and comic books, and it's the best. And my good friends are other cartoonists and goofy people just like me. So it's fun.
Love it, love it. Love the creative flow in the studio. Love we were talking about the ubiquity of books and Random House being everywhere. I love that I can just get on my phone and read anything at this point in my life. Like
Yeah.
it's the future right now. I love it.
Yeah. I know. Just, oh goodness. I mean, it's the absurdity of something being out of print right now. Doesn't that seem
Hmm.
crazy? Like it's
Hmm.
out of print. Like, really? That can't last. And they aren't. If it's out of print, they're working to put it back in print, or at least, electronically put it back in print that you'll have some access to it. It's just,
Hmm.
you know, it is a golden age of reading, and I hope it continues.
Agreed, agreed. Did I miss anything in the talk through that you want to make sure
I don't,
to
I don't
shout
think so.
out?
I think I've prattled on quite a bit, sir. So,
I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it a great deal, and I appreciate the time. I don't want to keep you from your drawing board because I know that there are anxious readers out there that are probably like, "Well, that guy stopped talking to him so he can get back over there and get another book out." So I greatly appreciate it and glad to talk with you anytime.
oh, thank you, sir. This was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking the time for me.
Thanks.